Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new GitHub repository. If you don't have GitHub, you'll want to go over to github.com and sign up for a new um, for an account. Oh my gosh, that guy's ugly. For an account. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create a new repository on GitHub. If you have Visual Studio and you have the GitHub extension, so to make sure that you've got that, open up your Visual Studio. I'm using Visual Studio 2019 Community. Click Manage Extensions at the top in the menu. At the top, you'll see Installed, and you should see this GitHub extension for Visual Studio. I have a video on how to install it. If you don't have it, you want to get this because you won't be able to communicate with GitHub without it. So I'll close that. So I'm going to assume that you've already got your GitHub and everything, your account and everything else hooked up. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new repository. So I'm going to click up here and say create. I'm going to give it a name. We'll just call it grocery app. Something like that. We'll give it a description. When form training for grocery list. Okay. Now we're going to browse to the path that we need to go to. And this is where our, let's see, this is where our code will reside. So users, Alex, that's me. This will be different for you. Documents, and we'll say repos. Right there. Say OK. And you'll notice that when I click on that, it gives us the C# Fundamentals 1. We're going to leave everything else alone. And we're going to say create. Here we go. So if we go over to GitHub, we should see in our C# fundamentals, eventually we'll see a directory over here under that. And it says grocery application. Actually, let me go back up one here. Fundamentals. And that's the branch there. Okay, so let's go back to repositories here 1 second here. There it is right there. So here's our repository here. Okay, so that might be a little funky there, but yeah, we're fine. Okay, so now what we're going to do is, since we're creating a master application, let's just go ahead and just bare bones a form application. You're going to click File, New, Project. And again, I'm using .NET Framework for my project here. And I'm going to play Windows Form Application over on the left, on the right, I mean, if you down click the little windows here, you'll say Desktop, and you'll say Windows Form Apps, .NET Framework. Say Next. And this next bit of stuff, we're going to name our project. So we called it Grocery Application. We'll make sure we're in the right spot for this. So we're going to browse. And there it is actually. It's going to be in this folder. We're going to create a new solution. Place the solution and the project in the same directory. We'll make sure we are on, I'm going to pick 4.7.2. I'm not going to pick 4.8.NET Framework. Say create. And if we go back over to our directory, There it is right there. And this is our .NET solution. So what we'll do before we do any other code is we are going to sync this up, and we're going to commit this, and we're going to push it up to the master repository, to the master branch of our repository. It's going to give us a starting point. So we're going to click Solution Explorer. I like to click Browse All Files or Show All Files. You'll notice that everything in here has a little plus next to it, most everything in there. I'm going to click on Team Explorer. I know I'm going a little fast, but we can always rewind this. I'm going to click Changes, and you'll notice all of the files that we just created, most of the files that we just created are over here. And what I like to do is I'm going to, when I create a new project, I'm giving myself a starting point. I'm going to say initial creation of project. Say commit all. That commits that to our local GitHub or Git repository. Click where it says sync. Now we're going to push this up to our remote repository, our remote branch, which is our master branch down here. So when I say push, it's pushing all of those code files and all of that object code up to my branch out on GitHub. So now if I refresh this, I've got a file here with code in it, as we can see. Okay, so that's our master branch. Now, we're not going to change that until we're not going to change that branch ever again until, I shouldn't say ever again. We're not going to change that branch again until we're ready to push all of the changes that we've made to our application up into the master branch. So what we need to do next is we need to create a working branch for our code. To do that in Visual Studio, there's multiple ways to do it, but this is probably the easiest way. Is come down here in the right hand corner where it says name master. Click the little arrow that says up, and you're going to say new branch. Now, what you want to do is you want to give this branch a name. And what I've been trained to do is you want to give it, I don't know, give it the name of your application. Let's just give it the name of the application. Grocery application. We'll call it working branch. Branch 1, something like that. You want to make sure that you're clicked onto the master branch there. Click checkout branch, make sure that's clicked, and say create branch. Now down here you'll see that our branch has changed from master to our working branch. And what this does is it has made a copy of our master branch, and it's turned our working branch and our master branch into the same, they have all the same code and everything else. But all of our changes are going to be made to our working branch. So all the changes that we make, everything, all the code that we commit, all the code that we push up to the remote is going to be pushed up to our working branch. And what that does is it gives us a baseline of where we started at, just in case we, make a mistake or whatever the case may be, or we make changes that aren't necessary. We can always revert back to what we just did. So, or what we have originally in our master. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and click in a Solution Explorer, and we're going to name our form. We're going to rename our form class here. So we're going to right click on the form over here in the Solution Explorer and say rename. And we're going to call it main form. Call it main form. You get a pop-up that says you're renaming a file. Would you like to perform a rename of the project of all references to the code element form 1? So what that does is that everything that references form 1, when we rename it to main form, it's going to change that for us automatically. So we don't have to go in and guess where that all is at. So let's say yes. And so now you'll see down here that this program.cs file has changed because this changed here. And then obviously we have this plus here because we no longer have form 1, we have main form now. So our form is no longer form 1, it's main form. I've said that like 3 times. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to change the text at the top of this form. The text is in a property called text at the bottom. And then at the top, you'll see this name property called main form. You want to make sure that when you're changing text, you're changing the right property. If you change this property here, you're changing the name of the form. You don't want to do that. You want to come down here, and you can actually alphabetize these properties here. You can click on this, and it'll be an alphabetical list. If I unclick, let's see if I do this here. If I can categorize it here into different sections like appearance, behavior, data, that kind of stuff. But you can also alphabetize it. So the text is down in the T's, obviously. So I'm going to change this from form 1, and I'm going to call it something like grocery store list. Grocery store list. And when I click enter, you notice up here that it changes the name of the text in our form here. Now it's a matter of designing our user interface. We can design the user interface as we see fit. So let's go back to our notes here. We have our requirements here. We want to make a grocery list application that has a table that keeps track of items, quantity, text, state, and price. So we definitely are going to need a table. But how do you display a table in a form application? Well, you can use a data view, and so that's what we're going to use. We're going to use a data view. We need to be able to add and remove and update items. So we may need some buttons, like we saw earlier. We need a button to click that we can save a list. We need a button to click that we can share the list. And we also need a button in order to close the list as well. Let's put that requirement there. User cannot resize the form. Okay. So if you see, I've got this form selected here, and the little boxes here, you can what you can do is you can resize the form, make it as big and as small as you want to. You have to consider, and if you see down here, you'll notice that as I make that change, that it changes the dimensions. And this is, I believe, in pixels. So you'll want to make sure that this is a form that will fit on every screen that it's, every Windows computer that you're going to run it on. So I'm going to make this not 1080. Let's make it uh, 6. No, let's make it. Let's see. Let's do some math here. 1080 minus 360. There we go. Let's make it 720. 720. Or you can just come over here and make it a certain size over here. under the size right there, 720. But we want to make sure we have enough to make our display, right? So let's give it a little bit of size here. Let's make it 1080. And then we'll resize as we see fit. Now, next we'll need some buttons. So click the form, make sure it's selected like you see here. Come over to your toolbox, make sure you've got your toolbox. If you can't find your toolbox, go up to View, and you can click Toolbox here, and it'll pop out for you. And the toolbox is programmed to automatically hide and show by clicking this little pin here. I like to hide it as needed. You can click on all Windows forms, or you can click on common controls. And what a control is just basically a button or something that handles logic that on your form. So a button is a control that raises an event when somebody clicks on it. So we're definitely going to need buttons. So let's click some buttons here. We're going to take that button, we're going to drag it. I'll show you what I did here. What I'm doing is I'm left clicking on the button, and I'm dragging it over to my form, and I'm just going to put it down. I can resize the button as I see fit. Drag it anywhere else on the screen, on the form I mean. Let's delete that. Another thing that you can do to make your form nice and neat is you can put panels in there. And what panels are, what a panel is basically a container that houses other controls. If you want to know what each of these controls is, all you have to do is just come over here and just hover over it. It'll tell you what it does. So it says it allows you to group collection of controls. And so I'm going to put a panel here. The other thing you'll notice is that these little guides pop up here. And what that does is it allows me to put margins on my screens so that it's neat. So I'm going to put a panel there. I'll drag down and I'll put another panel here for another set of buttons. I'll drag this up just a smidge. I'll put another panel here. This is going to be our display area. And then I'll put one more panel here. And this is going to have our numeric values for totals and stuff like that. There we go. Save my work here. Now let's drag our buttons back. Well, let's drag some text boxes here. So a text box is just it's a control that allows you to enter text. You can do multi-line editing and password protection and stuff like that. We're going to just drag this over here. And we need 3 at least. We're going to need a box for the ability to put an item name in there, a quantity, and a price. And we can use a checkbox for the text item, because we can change its state from on and off or true or false. So let's do this. Let's copy our text box, Control C, and then Control V a couple of times to create 2 new text boxes here. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the size of the font for those text boxes. So I'm going to come over here, I'm going to click this one here, and I probably should have did that before. Let me delete those. I'll click this. I'll click up in font, and I'll make it a 12-point font. So now it's bigger on my screen. And then what I'm also going to do while I'm at it is I'm going to give it a name. So I'm going to make sure I've got the name property chosen. I'm going to say item price. The font, I'm sorry, the text should be empty because we don't want to have, text in there quite yet. We want to control some of that. Copy paste a couple of times. Now I've got text boxes the same size and the same font. Now I just need to name these next two. This is going to be my item price. This one's going to be my item price. Property value is, do I have that? Oh, that's why. Let me switch these around here. There we go. This one's going to be item name. This is item price. This is going to be quantity. Now, we don't want individuals to just enter a ton of stuff in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to limit the amount of characters that people can put into these fields here. So the item name, let's let that one be about 20 to 25 characters long. And that's the maximum length property. Make that 25 for the item name. For the price, it's going to be a decimal. Now, when you're messing around with decimals in a string valued field, because this is a text box, so you can't force it to be a number when it's actually a text box, but you can do some behind the scenes stuff on it. We're going to make this no bigger than 5 numbers and a decimal point. So 3 numbers and 2 decimal places, so 5. Because it's a grocery list, unless you're spending thousands of dollars on groceries, per item. And then this last one, we're going to make that a maximum length of a 2, because this is a quantity field, right? And we'll size these a little bit here so that they're a little bit more uniform. And then we'll also need to make a checkbox control. So let's come over here to our controls and click checkbox and drag it over and put it right there. We'll also make the font of this checkbox 12 as well. And then in its text, we're going to make that say taxable item. So that when they click this box, it'll automatically set it to a taxable item. All right, let's save our work. Next, I shouldn't say next all the time. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to make labels for our boxes here. Just drag a label over there. And you don't have to give the label a name, but what you can do is you can label it with the text. So give it the right size. So you want, somebody's getting in trouble here. We're going to call this one item price, item name, and then let's come up to our font, make that 12 pixels. And you notice that there's a guide that automatically lines the text, the label, with the middle of the form and the bottom of this control, or this label is lined up with the bottom of this control. Now let's copy and paste a couple of times like this. Come on. There we go. Now, if I click here, roll down the text. This is our item price. And the next one is our item quantity. And we'll just need to line that up just a little bit better. And let's not call it item quantity. Let's just make quantity in there. Put a Q. Like that. And then do the same thing here. Same thing here. And that looks a little off to me. And it looks a little off to me, but anyway. Maybe it's just the way I'm sitting it. No, that's right. Okay, let's save our work here. So now we've got a control, and this can run. If I click start, it'll run. I can type stuff in there. You notice I can't type anymore. 123.45. Uh-oh. I need 12345. I need one more decimal point right there. 2, and I can check and do the box there. Alrighty. So on our price, we need to make that 6, not a 5. For the max length is 6. Okay. Another thing that you'll want to do is you'll want to make the tab. There's a method property called tab index, and what that will do is when a person hits the tab key, it will automatically tab them to the next box. You want to see if your tab index is, so this one is going to be 1. This one will be 0. This one will be 2. Then that should be 3. Yep. So what that does is when a person's in this box up here and they hit tab, it just goes to the next control like that. So it makes it easier for them so they can go through, right? Okay. So now we've saved our work. Now let's make some buttons. So we're going to need an add item button, a remove item button. We're going to make it kind of mirror what we've got going on here, right? Let's make it mirror what we've got going on here, right there. Got to add an item, and it doesn't have to look exactly this way. We've got an add item button. We'll make it so big. And let's change the property for the name of that button to add item. Like that. Add item. We'll make the font of this one. All the font on these are going to be 12. And the text of this button is not going to say button 1, but it's going to say add item. Copy, paste. Might have to shrink this one down just a smidge. Boom. And we'll say remove. Uh-oh. Maybe I should just say remove. There we go. Something like that instead. Add, remove, and update will go here. Let's try to make the buttons all the same size. This button's 120 by 62. Let's make this one, let's go to the size and make this one 120. And we'll make this one 120. And we'll just drag it right in the middle there. And give that some space there. Do the same thing there. And this should be update instead of remove. And this one should say to be our remove button. And this one will be our update item. And that's the name property. We've got some even stuff going on here. So I can click, I'm going to select all of that right there, except for that one there. And let's just move these up just a smidge. There we go. And then we're going to make 3 more buttons. Actually, let's delete that button. Copy and paste that button there. This button is going to be load. This button is going to be save. This button will be share. This button will be close. So this one will say load. This one will say save. We can actually give these buttons different colors too. This one will be share. And this one will be close. Like that. Okay. And let's go ahead and name them. This will be our load button. Load list. This one will be save list. This one will be share list. This one will be close form. And then also over here, you see this big giant area right there. That is a data view that we're going to have to put in there. Let me close this one here. Yep, I want to exit that. So we'll need a data view over there. That's another control. So you can come over here to the toolbox, look for the D's and data grid view. There it is right there. Just drag it over there. Don't worry about any of that right now. And make it bigger so it fills up that panel over there. And then lastly, let's take that first label, copy and paste. And actually, I think there's a table. Yeah, I won't worry about that right now. We're going to copy these labels here because we want to have a tax item count. And we won't mess around with these right now. We'll just get them in there so that they're in there. We'll leave that grid view one there. We've named our buttons over here. Okay, so now let's save our work again. We'll start our form. And we've got a nice little neat form. Now we can resize this, but we don't want to be able to do that. So there's some other stuff in this form we're going to be doing here. We can't drag and drop, all this other stuff around. So that's good. We can click all the buttons. We can click all the buttons, cut the checkbox, put stuff in there. So we've got a form here. So right now, we're going to save our work, and I'm going to stop this video. But I'm going to show you real quick how to commit your changes. So we're going to come over here to Team Explorer, hit the home key, the home button, go to where it says changes, and then just tell what you did. Created form app, form layout, added buttons and um, text boxes. Added buttons, text boxes. No. Uh, buttons, text boxes, um, data, grid, view, and different form elements, properties, like that. Say commit all. You're fine. And then since we are on our working branch, what we can do is we can click sync here. Click push. And what that does is it pushes up our changes to our remote repository. So if we come back over here and we refresh this, we can see that we have a change over here. So if I click down and go to the working branch and click in there, I can see all of the stuff in there. So now all of the stuff that we've done is right here. And all our properties are in there. Everything we've got is in there. Our form has been created, so that's code. Now you won't be able to see all of the visual aspects of everything because you have to be in Visual Studio to see that. But if we look in our form designer over here, we can see we've got our panels, we've got our checkbox, our remove item, update, all that kind of stuff. Everything that we named, it's all in there. All of our fonts are there. All our labels are in there so far. So we've got everything in there that we need. So now you're ready to be done with this as far as for today's video. In the next video, what we'll do is we'll lock the form down some so that they can't resize anything. And then we'll start getting some of the code aspects in there as well. We'll make some corrections to this. We'll get some of the code aspects in there as well. Do some data validation on our actual form elements as far as like the controls for the name and the price and stuff, so make sure that they can't put bogus data in there. So until next time, just practice and keep going and doing your thing and go from there.